Sanjiv Bajaj joins us, Managing Director and Chairman of Bajaj Finserv. One of the things that's come out in the economic survey is on credit offtake. And your thoughts, Mr. Bajaj, on what Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman should be doing to try and get more companies in the private sector to actually go and borrow more so that they can go out and invest in new greenfield projects?
If you actually see, the credit offtake has been reasonably good with the MSME, the SME sector, and we also had CI recently did a survey where over 50% of our members who were surveyed mentioned that they've already started investing in a new capex cycle, which means over the next 3-4 quarters you'll see the benefit of that coming in. And all this is only happening because the larger situation around us is getting more stable in this pandemic. We can see this current wave, it's been handled really well. Healthcare is all in place, and the vaccination rates have finally come to a very high level. And as a result, there is less disruption in the individual citizens' life, in the lives of businesses. This creates greater confidence, and it helps with the consumption cycle. It helps demand increase, and we need to see a continuation of this. So I hope that we see a continuation in the focus on healthcare, anticipating the next wave, getting ready ahead in time, whether with the right medical advice, getting boosters to more of the population, mix and match, the next set of therapeutics, proactively working with these companies so that we get ready for a possible another wave. And this main thing is to avoid the disruption, minimize the disruption like has been handled so well in this particular wave. In addition, the government should continue its spend on infrastructure, and as we do this, private sector capex will also kick in. As I mentioned, we should continue to see good growth.
Sanjiv, you actually have operations in many small cities across the country, rural and semi-urban areas. What is your sense of the kind of labor issues or unemployment problem out there, and what would be your recipe for the finance minister to try and address that? But that's because that seems to be a very real problem over the last couple of years, which has only gotten worse.
Well, that's actually something that is so important, because as you go to smaller cities, we set up branches, offices in smaller cities. For us to get quality manpower that don't just have a degree, but they know how to work, becomes a big challenge. And also when you look at the youngsters over there, they've done their education, but they just don't know how to work in a formal institutional setup. So there is this big gap, and that's why as CI, we always focused on skill building. We think the government needs to review its skill building plans, put a lot more focus on that, bring in additional capacity and quality. Everybody does not need to go and become a startup and a CEO in a large company. There are a whole bunch of jobs that can be done at the front end that can give employment to hundreds of millions of Indians. They just need to be trained correctly. So I believe this is a big need. It's something that government, public sector, private sector all need to invest their money and do this, because it's something that takes time to do to get the quality right, to build capacity, but it will also give us the long-term benefit, the manpower, employment, and all the other positives that go with it.
Now, you have a terrific collection mechanism at Bajaj Finance, but you also have the pulse of what the retail mood is like, Sanjiv. So tell me, given the fact that incomes have been hit so badly over the last couple of years and the unemployment issues linger, as you yourself said, is there a delinquency problem which is looming for the retail of the consumer segment over the next year or so? Could that start to creep into the banking system stealthily? Because people are not talking about it. We are celebrating the fact that we have seen the worst of the NPA cycle. But could something like a retail NPA cycle start to manifest itself, given the way incomes have been hit at the lower end of the pyramid?
So very clearly, as you're mentioning, it was at the lower end of the pyramid that incomes got hit. It was the informal sector, and that's where the government provided support through the moratorium for last, and through the second wave where there was no such moratorium. Actually, lenders did reasonably well because they had provided for it. They'd gone and raised capital, and a large amount of that NPAs actually flew through for many of us through last year. Interestingly though, when you go one or two segments up and see the middle class consumption, almost nobody in the middle class lost jobs. Companies continue to employ them, continue to pay them. Maybe increments didn't come in year before last. Last year has been reasonably decent, and the middle class has started spending. So that has added a positive spin to this whole thing. And even when I see the last couple of months, and especially January through this pandemic, since, as I mentioned earlier, the pandemic on the ground has been handled very well. We are continuing to see good momentum, especially in urban India. Rural India in the last couple of months has slowed down, and the government needs to focus on that. And as you correctly mentioned, that even in urban India, focus on those at the lower end of the income segment.
Rahul? In a way, comes as we've been saying, Mr. Bajaj, at a time when perhaps the government can breathe a little bit more easily than they could in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. The fact that large parts of the adult population are vaccinated should give some cause for comfort. Do you believe, therefore, that the opportunity this time is there to send out much stronger signals than we could in the last 2 years to actually get growth on, back to where we would have liked to see it even pre-pandemic? At the moment, the comparison is to 2020 February. We would like to see the comparison possibly to a pre-2017 India. Some of us would like to see. Do you see that happening?
I absolutely hope so, and the confidence comes from the fact that last year, given the situation, was a good budget. We can see the benefit of that coming in. Our fiscal deficit hopefully will turn out to be lower than what was anticipated. We have seen that indirect tax and direct tax collection has been strong, which shows that the economy is humming, coming back. The investments that the government has been making in infrastructure and what it has started making in healthcare are also positives. And yes, as you said, we have to keep building on this, because as the government continues to build on this, private sector investment is coming back. So you're going to see a multiplier effect as a result of this in the coming years.
Pranav Satya, Chair at FICCI Committee on Taxation, partner and national leader with us at the moment. Pranav, are you joining us at this moment? No, I don't think he's with us. Pranav, you want to tell us from a taxation perspective what you are looking at in this budget? I think you're on mute, Pranav. You'll have to unmute yourself. Can you hear?
In this budget is stability. From a direct tax standpoint in particular, and overall from a taxation standpoint, I think right now the mood of the country is good, and nothing should be done which would probably upset that. Yes, there could be a few things like promoting private capex. For example, extending the concessional tax rate of 17% till 25 because of the pandemic. The last 2 years has not enabled companies to invest and start new projects or bring it to such a stage that they can start production before March 23. So we think that's one good thing that could be done very clearly. Also, what we believe is that a lot of fillip is possible for capex, and particularly in the green energy and new emerging space, and that's where we feel some SOPs or some incentives could probably help. But by and large, our mood right now is to promote innovation, R&D efforts, green energy, and overall to see how the environment can be kept as stable, predictable, so that industry gets the confidence to invest, which I think is the need of the hour. And once that happens and that kicks in, I think there will be enough growth and employment generation to lift the entire economy to newer heights.